Welcome, Sarah, to the Moms of Tweens and Teens podcast. I'm so excited to talk to you and happy that you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. This is a great opportunity and you are so fun. So thank you.
So are you. And for the listeners, we met through one of my daughters, my youngest, that was at college, through her roommate. I want our listeners to hear about you, a little bit about your background and your personal story.
Sure. So I am 42 years old and I am a professor at Texas Christian University. And I teach in the Department of Strategic Communication. And everyone's like, what does that even mean? Well, that means that I teach advertising and public relations classes and also teach some writing classes too, which is a joy because I love writing. And so I think that the way that Better Box really came to life has been because of the journey that I lived, which started really when I was in my 20s. So I married my high school sweetheart. We started dating when we were 18 at Haltom High School, go Buffs, and near Fort Texas. And, we dated through college. I moved to a college to go with him there. He was a swimmer and got a scholarship. And we got married when we were 24. And, we never dated anybody else. It was one of those beautiful romances. And very soon after we got married, he got diagnosed with chronic depression. And it was something that he didn't realize he had. I didn't know anything about any type of mental illness. I had been very lucky in my life thus far to have been spared any personal experience with it, and my family hadn't experienced it. So neither one of us really knew how to handle it well. And this is a time too, this is, almost 20 years ago, when mental health wasn't talked about like it is now. It was not part of the conversation. You didn't go up to a friend or family and say, hey, I'm dealing with chronic depression. It was even so much more stigmatized than it is today. So I kind of thought, well, he needs counseling, he needs medication. And I also thought wrongly, well, I can be happy enough for the both of us and I can fix you. And how sometimes we think we can do these things. So that was kind of the journey that we started on really right after we got married. And that was the journey of our entire marriage. And unfortunately, that journey didn't end well for us. He didn't do the things that we know now you have to do to take care of yourself, to take care of your body, take care of your mind. When you have something like that, and I think that it's hard to treat any type of illness, physical illness, mental illness. It's hard to do it. It's hard to maintain it. But when you are aware and really, really, really want to, and you have that support system in place, it is very possible to do it. And I think it's very possible to overcome it. With time and work. So we ended up getting divorced in a large part because of it. But before that, we had a wonderful daughter together named Amelia. And I always kind of was worried, and I still am, that she might inherit because some mental illnesses have a genetic predisposition, right? Genetic link. And so I was always a little bit, okay, I'm going to learn as much as I can about mental health, mental illness, so that I can, if this is something in her sweet little body, then I will understand what I need to do this time to really help her, to really be there for her in a way that a lot of us just don't know how to do, not because we don't want to, but just because we don't have that knowledge. It's not something that We understand. So that has been always part of my story and my history. And um, it was it was a sad thing. I mean, divorce is sad. It's hard, especially when you've been with someone for 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always kind of thought, how can I turn, you know, this heartbreak into something beautiful? How can you turn your trauma into triumph? And during the pandemic, I saw my college students at TCU struggling so much with mental health. Um, and at TCU, as many universities, periodically will have a suicide on campus. One of the students, it'll be announced. Um, and that's happened. I've been there for 6 years. I would say that happens periodically.
Mm-hmm.
And those are just the students that we know about. Suicide, especially in that age bracket, is a very real thing. And I thought, what are some tangible, evidence-based techniques and practices that I could create and provide for my students, for myself, for my friends, um, that could get them past a terrible moment in time, which I think is a lot of reason people take their lives, is because they
Mm-hmm.
can't get past that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to get them to that next level. Maybe that next level is talking to your crisis intervention, counseling, whatever it is. And then, sometimes it's just like, I'm having a really bad day, and I need something wonderful to do. So, Better Box is a happiness toolkit for mental health. I was just saying a sentence after my whole long, why did I do this? My why. That's what it is. And, I've seen it be pretty effective so far. But really, in actuality, if it could help one person, past a really traumatic season, then it's really worth it to me, because I know what that feels like.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking I have some things I want you to talk about after sharing your story, but I'm thinking about how a better box too, it's giving it to somebody, and
Mm.
just how that alone, I'm thinking of you, I care about you, somebody sees you, and it's giving, in addition to that, it's like we can often feel like nobody cares about me, nobody's thinking about me, and to be able to give something to somebody to show that care is a powerful thing.
It is. I think that a lot of times we feel very lonely,
Yeah.
and we are social creatures as humans. That is how our brains developed. And um, I think we all need someone, and we all need to feel like we are loved and cared for. And I think you're right. Giving someone a better box makes them feel like, oh my gosh, this is a special present gift for me, that this person cared so much about, like, how I feel about myself and how happy I am that they wanted to give me this to. And it's a highly experiential opening it. It's real pretty, it's well designed, it has tissue paper and stickers, and you open it up, it's like, oh, it's like a beautiful, like a joyful basket of like happy, that's kind of springing out of it. So I do think that, yes, like, especially, I think women particularly love to get gifts like this. I know
Yeah.
that all the women in my life do.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna hold it up after, and we'll talk about each thing, but it is, and it's beautiful the way you did it, and it is so fun. The tissue paper and the box itself and the smile, and yeah, and I think that guys like it too. They're just maybe not gonna admit
Mhm.
it as much, but that it makes them feel good too.
Yeah.
So,
No, I agree. I
yeah.
think that, yeah, I mean, there's a candle in there, and I think guys like candles, but it's
Yeah.
sometimes not the most manly thing to admit. but
Uh-huh.
they like candles. All the guys that I know, they all have candles in their house, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I want to touch on a few things of about your story that you shared, because I think it's important for the listeners to hear. I'm curious with your high school sweetheart, your ex-husband, when you look back, did you see any signs before before you even got married, that there was some depression there? Because I think that it's hard to see it if you don't, like you said, you never experienced anything like it. So it was hard to see it. And I know a lot of our listeners have kids, that it's hard to see it because they're teenagers, and a lot of the behaviors, it might come out as being disrespectful or procrastinating, or just different behaviors, and you don't recognize it. So did you have any red flags that you didn't see and you were in denial around?
That's such a great question. And so what I've learned about chronic depression, and I've written about it some in the past as well, is that it usually presents itself um, by like the teenage years. That's pretty common. It has a presentation in teenagers when it presents. Um, I didn't notice it initially in him while we were in college, but he was depressed while in college because when we were joking earlier, I went to a party school, and most of the time we were out drinking with friends. He would sleep a lot, but everyone slept a lot, and I mean, we were together a lot, but he had a separate life that I didn't see, where he was going to his classes. He was an athlete, so he's doing all of those practices. He was working. And I kind of always just chalked it up to we had very different personalities. I was much more optimistic, happy, and he wasn't as much. But in retrospect, they were there. I just would have never in a million years seen it. I think as parents, if I were to look now toward my own daughter, she's 10 right now. If I wanted to be really cognizant of what to look for, I would say, has her sleeping pattern changed? Is she spending more time alone in her room?
Which is hard to know too, because they do, when they get into the teen years, they do spend more time in the room.
They do. They spend more time alone. I mean, she's just 10 now, and she's spending a lot more time in her room, drawing or organizing, or doing these things that she likes to do. She's establishing her own independence and self, which is wonderful and important. I think also probably maybe a little bit of, and I saw this with my ex-husband, there's an emotional disconnection. There was a big emotional disconnection between us, because he had so much shame around not wanting to face or admit how he was feeling. And that shame, he didn't want me to see it, so he pulled back. And it caused a big disconnection between us. And I think for him, at least, that shame it didn't go away. For the course of our marriage, it didn't go away. It was always there. And so he's always was trying to cover it up, and it resulted in just disconnection, lack of, that kind of emotional engagement and communication that's so important in a marriage.
And you said you were trying to, I can't remember exactly the words, like save him, or, when you look back, and of course we don't want to look back and ever, shame ourselves for how we do the best we can at the time. But do you think of what maybe you would have done differently now that would have been helpful, that was not helpful at the time?
Absolutely. Well, so my one big takeaway from the experience that I think everyone should kind of keep in mind, that I wish I'd known when I was 24, is that no matter how much we love somebody, we cannot change them. And we cannot help them. They have to be willing to help themselves, no matter how much we love that person. At the end of the day, that person has to be willing to put in the work, say, okay, I'm going to do this. Okay, I'm going to try it because it matters. And for my ex-husband, he did eventually, but it was only after he lost the marriage, that he did it. He had to lose everything, and then he did. So, and that's terrible. And I hate that, like, you don't want to get to the point where you have to go to total loss. Let's stop it before it gets to that point.
Yeah. Well, and I'm thinking how easy as a parent it is to get in the way because we're trying so hard, because if you think of with our kids, we love them so much. And at that age, they tend to resist the more that we push, rather than trying to empower them to take ownership. Like what I hear is he had to take ownership of his own mental health. You could not make him do that. And I feel like it's this weird human nature thing where the more that we try to make somebody, the more that they resist. Do you feel like that was part of the case here?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and I think that he felt like I was forcing him to do too many things, that I was pushing him in a way that he didn't feel comfortable with. All these different dynamics were at play. And I think something that would have been helpful, and something I try to do with my daughter now, is we have open conversations about feelings, about mental health, about hard things. It's like open door, because I want to now, as she's a 10-year-old, to build that foundation of knowing that I'm a safe space to talk about really, really hard things with no judgment. Because I know that my ex-husband felt that I judged him a lot. And, that was never my intention, but I can absolutely see how that he would have felt that way, in retrospect.
Well, it's easy to feel scared when you love somebody and you see that happening. And what's our natural reaction when we feel scared is we want to control it because we feel so powerless.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Which is what I love about Better Box, because I feel like, Better Box is opening that door and it is getting that conversation started. And like you said, with your daughter, being able to talk to her about her feelings and how she's doing and be that safe, non-judgmental place. This just feels like such a bridge to becoming more self-aware of our mental health and so many levels. So can we go through it?
Yeah, absolutely.
The listeners can't see it. Okay, but I just want to say, so you open this up, we're going to talk about who you give this to and what you're doing with it, but it's this Better Box and it's really colorful in the front. It's got this smile. I love it. Then when I opened it up, it had this beautiful tissue and a little sticker. And then it says, happiness starts here. Your evidence-informed holistic happiness toolkit. So step one. So go tell us about step one.
Sure. So inside the box and the card that you've got there, and this is how I like to think about and explain it. It's like, for women, we all understand the skincare process. It's like we have 1,000 different things. What should we choose? And so I wanted to have the card in there to say, all right, we got 3 products in here, 3 steps, and this is why they work, and this is how to do it. So, we have a gratitude journal in there, and the gratitude journal is this cute, small little pocket journal. Yes, with all these different designs that you write down your daily gratitude in, and it's free flow, however you want to use it. If you want to doodle, if you want to have quotes, but it's like, this is your tool to write down gratitude. You keep it by your bed in the morning or do it before you go to bed at night. I like doing it in the morning personally. It kind of sets the day off for me in a positive way. And it really does change your mind. It really changes the way that your mind is working. It really does. The science backs it up and it's really cool in that way. Then another thing we have in the box is a lavender candle. And so lavender is, I know, it's so cool. I wish you could smell it through the
I
screen.
can smell it. I love it.
Yeah.
I've been waiting to do this interview, so I didn't burn it yet. So now I can burn it. I'll
You
put
can
it
totally
right
burn it.
here on my desk when I work.
It's,
And I'm like having a panic attack with all I have to do.
I know. I mean, so that's lavender tea, and I get it from this beautiful company called 22-in-1 Co. And they produce beautiful things, the journal and that candle. But lavender has the power to calm, reduce anxiety. Just inhaling the scent of lavender. And I wish I'd known about this 10 years ago. I would have been having lavender candles burning just constantly, like all the time. I'd be like, what? All I gotta do is light a lavender. But it really does. It's just a simple thing that, no, it's not end all be all, fix everything, but it's one action step you can take to actually create a positive impact in your brain. Just one thing you can do, create a positive impact. And then the last thing in the box, which is my favorite thing, are called inspiration cards. And there's these little mini inspiration cards that come with envelopes. They're all different designs. I have different quotes on them, like it's okay to not be okay. You do hard things really well. And those cards are designed for the receiver of the Better Box to give to other people. So you open up the cards, and I've got one of them that says, yes, you are very much appreciated for what you do. So that's a card that I might give to my mom because she does so much for me in my life, still does. And, the back is blank on purpose. You can write something like, I'd relate, dear mom, I love you so much. I appreciate everything you've done for me. Thank you, and put in the envelope and give it to her. So
yeah, but there's little envelopes that come
yeah.
with, which I think is so nice. So it doesn't make it hard. Even thinking of you, like so appreciate, you and thinking of you today. Like what a difference that makes.
It really does. And, when we think about how and so those are connection. And so how connection impacts the brain. And we were talking about this earlier, we are social creatures. Humans were designed for connection with others. We are tribal. That is how we are. And this is a connection point that you can make with another person. You are making them feel better. And by them making them feel better, you are feeling better in turn, and you're forming a deeper relationship. So again, small actionable step that you can take that really does produce a result pretty immediately too. Because once you give them that and they're like, oh, then you're like, oh, and you just both feel kind of that circle.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. I love it so much. Well, now who are you focusing on with these boxes?
So my largest clients to date I sold some to school districts. I work with some school districts around in Texas. I've worked with Cook Children's. I sold an order to them first, and I actually gave them to their behavioral health physicians. And this was last year. And then I'm working with a lot of mental health organizations here in Fort Worth and Tarrant County. I'm doing a big order right now that's going to go out to teachers, which is really cool.
Oh,
Near to my heart. Yeah. So, I think in terms of who would most benefit from this, the answer would really be anyone, because the products and the practices are accessible. They're simple. I would say age-wise, I did a little program with my daughter's elementary school. They just exchanged cards. I gave them the card components and they did that and they loved it. The little like third and fourth graders were like write little cards and giving people and they love that. So some things in the box are appropriate for that age bracket, but really we're thinking older, probably I would say middle school, high school and above are going to be more so.
Okay. What are you seeing the difference that it's making?
Yeah, so the cards themselves, and this is just information I got from a school counselor that she told me at my daughter's school, was that the kids that gave the cards were so happy. They came back to her and said, Miss Emily, I gave them the card and they were so happy. And oh my gosh, I was so happy. And this is a fourth grader, internalizing this action through it, and how excited they were to have these cards and give them away. For adults, would say our age group that are getting them, the box makes them feel like somebody really cares about them, that someone believes enough in them and their future to buy them something that's going to build it, that's going to take care of them in a really meaningful and deep way.
Yeah, I love that. Do you feel like it's gotten helped to get the conversation going as well with the stigma around mental health? Because I'm even thinking it would be so helpful in the school system to be able to have the teacher share the Better Box with all the students and then talking about what the signs are and coming alongside of their friends and being feeling like they understand it, like you're teaching your daughter to understand mental health at a very young age. It's important for the kids to understand as well. How do you handle it when a friend comes up to you and they tell you they're depressed? What do you do with that?
Yeah, I think it does. I think it's kind of an entry point into the conversation. And I actually use it a lot at my job at TCU. All my students, most of them know that I do this. And I'll have cards out on my desk. I have the candle out at work. And a lot of times in my classes on the first day or middle of the semester, I will give them out cards. I'll say, hey, y'all, I brought 25 cards with different little lines on them. You pick one that you want to give to somebody else. And then they'll be like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. What is this? And then I'll tell them about it. And so then they feel like I've opened that door with them to have a greater conversation about mental health, and then, at some point in the semester, I'll have a handful come into my office and just say, hey, here's what's going on. And I want to talk about it. And I always say, okay, I'm not a licensed counselor. I was like, I'm not a licensed counselor, but I can sit here and I can listen to you and I can tell you what maybe how that would make me feel if that were happening to you, so that's kind of the door that it's open for me. And also, I think here in Fort Worth, we're like this really big, small town. Friends and colleagues that know that I do this, they feel much more open talking to me about mental health issues. And I think, I am grateful and happy that I can receive that information and feel like that's a safe space to have those conversations.
Yeah. Just the power of listening. And what I love about the Better Box is it keeps it simple. I think that our human nature, we make it so complicated. We do this Valentine's Day affirmation printables through Moms of Tweens and Teens. And it's like 2 sheets of specific affirmations.
Mm.
And I've heard from so many parents, just the difference that that's made, focusing more on the positive and being able to affirm their kids. And this reminds me of that a little bit with just it's giving a card to somebody that I'm thinking of you, giving a box where I care about you, with the candle, those little things. And those little things make a difference.
I think you've hit on something that's so universal here, that I've thought about so much since the pandemic. And it's like the little things in life are the biggest things.
Yes.
I mean, I think during the pandemic, I was so worried, especially in the beginning, about getting COVID and then not knowing I had it and accidentally giving it to my parents. It was like it was such a fear of mine, giving it to them and then dying from it. I mean, it was such a fear. So anytime that, I would go, TCU had COVID tests, we'd get them anytime. I would go get a COVID test at TCU, and I would go over there right after the test. I'm like, okay, I know I don't have it. I'm good. I know that I can at least spend, however many days with them. And I just relished that small connection, that dinner we had, that whatever it was, that hugging, whatever. And just that little thing was so meaningful. And I think our lives are built upon these little moments,
Yeah. Yeah. It made you appreciate it that much more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Sarah, you have to tell our listeners about where to find you and how to order these boxes. We have a lot of administrators that listen, and teachers and social workers and healthcare providers, where to find you so that they can order the boxes, even give them to their staff, teachers, students.
Yeah, I would love that. I love social workers. I did some research with a team of social workers at TCU. My heart goes out to y'all. So the best way is to, you can look at my website, of course, and that's yourbetterbox.org. If you want to have a conversation with me, maybe to do a customized order, or just saying, hey, here's what I'm thinking. What audience do you think this would be best for? And we can have a longer conversation. I run my social media and I look at it all the time. So my Instagram handle is at @your_betterbox. And
@your_betterbox.
And you can just call me. And my cell phone number is on my Instagram too. So you can reach out that way as well.
Yeah, and I will put all the links in the show notes so that they can find you as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, of course, I like teachers. My parents are both teachers, public school teachers. I think it's a beautiful gift for teachers. Teachers have a really, really hard job. My mom did elementary school for 30 years. I do not know how she did it. It's incredible. My dad did high school. So it's beautiful for teachers. It's beautiful for those of us in the service professions where we're serving others. It's good. How can we love ourselves and take care of ourselves at the same time?
Yeah. So I just want to close on this note. You have this on your Instagram. Burnout exists because we made rest a reward rather than a right. Yeah. And I love that. I love that. How important it is with what you just said to love ourselves and to be kind to ourselves and each other with wherever we're at.
Absolutely. I think self-compassion is the biggest gift that we can give ourselves and give anybody. For sure.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for what you're doing. And I just am excited to hear about all the orders that come in for people that want to give their loved ones, colleagues, students, friends, better boxes. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. You are a joy, a joy, a joy.
Well, thank you, Sarah. Yeah. And have a great rest of the day.
Okay. Take care.